couple of weeks ago, we met with Minister Yasser Naqvi and our mayor and the chief and Staff Sergeant Ken Bryden, and the mayor has directed the deputy city manager to work with us and try to make the exit strategy, who's been led by Crime Prevention Ottawa, is moving forward. So I believe, I'm not sure if you want to shed a little bit of light on where the work has been today from the deputy city manager perspective, or maybe Nancy can add a little bit about this. So just let us know in a few minutes where are we and how we are moving forward on the exit strategy.
Consulting with the service partners to design, based on the best evidence possible, a suitable approach to exit services for adult gang members, adult gang-involved individuals in Ottawa. And we are waiting for the city to identify funds within the budget. And if we are so lucky, we will be prepared to enter into agreements to put on the ground an exit service.
Mr. Chair, just to speak to some of the successes also we've had from an enforcement and suppression perspective since January 1st this year. Our officers, we talk about proactive policing, our officers are out there engaging in proactive policing calls where they'll put themselves off in neighborhoods, walk the neighborhoods, they'll put themselves off at malls. So we've had 88 of those types of calls to service, specifically dealing with targeting neighborhoods that have been problems where we've had some issues. We've conducted over 85 traffic stops specifically to deal with gang members. We've executed 4 search warrants. We've conducted 23 compliance checks on known gang members that are out on conditions. We've charged 15 people with criminal offenses, totaling a number of 53 criminal charges. And we've also seized 4 guns off the street as well since January 1st. So our officers, our members are out there proactively doing a lot of work in suppression and enforcement, and that type of work will continue as we move forward.
I assume that we know pretty well who all the gang members are in the city, barring the example where somebody, as you say, it's a fluid situation and people just arrive, we have a pretty good idea of who these characters are. And I assume as well that most of these gangs only survive because they have firepower, and so therefore with the guns, why is it not possible for us to get a warrant, a legal warrant, and we know where they are, or do they hide the guns? Are they stashing them somewhere other than where you might normally find them? It's the one thing that has always, that has struck me as something that should be achievable, that we should be able to, because we know who they are, pick the right moment in time. And when you say, Chief, we've picked up 4 guns this month, there's a lot more guns out there than 4, as we all know. And why do we have such a difficult time getting these guns? I understand there's a difference between arresting people, but Staff Sergeant?
Mr. Chair, sir. The difficulty with the criminal investigations stems from lack of information from the outset. So we respond to these calls, and the information we receive is typically from what investigators and the police are able to come up with at the scene. There are witnesses, of course there are victims, but for different reasons, those victims and witnesses do not want to speak to the police. Fear of retaliation, fear of retribution, simply don't like the police. There's different reasons. With that, the complexity of these investigations, as they already are, makes it that much more difficult. To put together an affidavit or a search warrant to go into a residence or a vehicle, whatever the case may be, makes it that much more difficult to get that affidavit signed by a judge. We have to put forward the best evidence in order to expect the best possible prosecution on some serious criminal offenses. So for us to do that, again, without the cooperation at different levels for that information we do need, does take time to get it. The search warrant application process can be very lengthy in of itself, but due to the complexity of these investigations, and for the reasons I spoke about for victims and witnesses and members of the communities in general, do not want to come forward to speak to us. And for the most part, I do understand it.
I understand them not wanting to come forward as well. And I guess if I interpret your comments correctly, then there's, from the legal perspective, the legal community is not forthcoming in assisting us then in getting these search warrants. And again, I'm going in the assumption, if a gang, we know where they are, we know who they are, and we pretty well know where most of them live. And I think it's a fairly safe assumption in many cases that we would know that there would be guns in that residence. And I just find it, and this is not being critical of our force, but I find it somewhat alarming that the judicial system would not support you in a warrant that would allow you to go in and get the guns off the street.